Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan here for another Inside the Birds podcast. This will be part 2 of our really lengthy 2-part podcast series where we call it the review and the preview. On Monday morning, we came out with our offensive review and preview, in which we went through the entire offensive side of the roster and recapped what they did in 2022 and what we thought might happen this offseason as they go into the 2022 season. I'm sorry, look back at 2021. And then we'll do the same in this episode for the defense. So we got a lot to talk about in that regard. ITB TV, we will have one out this week. So look forward to having that up for everybody. You should still catch the last one with Greg Cosell. Oh, yeah. I think there's some really fascinating tape breakdown stuff that he has on Jalen Hurts. Of course, InsideTheBirds.com, we've got the first Andrew DeCecco mock draft coming out. It'll be up on Wednesday morning. So maybe by the time people listen to this, Andrew DeCecco's mock draft 1.0 will be out. Now think about all the picks that the Eagles have this year. This is not an easy year to do a mock draft.
10 right now.
Mock draft. Yeah. All right. But Andrew's always dialed into who those prospects are that are great for the 3rd, 4th, and day 3 round. So make sure you check out that. Will be on InsideTheBirds.com.
Wow. Okay, I can't wait.
I get excited. I get the mock drafts are starting to come out, so I'm getting excited.
So later today, later today. So when I look at it, because I'm going to the Senior Bowl Monday, I'll be doing a show for us there. So I look forward to seeing who the Senior Bowl players that Andrew's mocking.
Yes. Yes, and a lot of those quarterbacks are going to be there. That's pretty cool. I don't say that. Yeah, I don't say that, by the way, from an Eagles standpoint.
Yeah, sure.
I'm very curious about this quarterback class.
So am I.
I think people are kind of over-hating on it. I think if you think about it, every year there's a guy that comes out of a quarterback class that winds up being a lot better than people think. For example, I mean, it's easy to say now, but if you do go back to Mahomes' draft, he was the 2nd or the 3rd quarterback taken? It was Trubisky.
I don't remember.
Then Mahomes, I think. He was the 2nd quarterback taken, but it was at 10th. And I think Watson went in that draft too, didn't he? The point is, those guys are not considered top 5 prospect guys, you know? Yeah, they went lower than you would expect, and they've become really good quarterbacks. And of course, Josh Allen, he was the 3rd quarterback taken, right, in his draft. Was he not?
Yep. Well, first of all, Deshaun Watson in 2017 was the 12th pick overall.
Right.
Trubisky was number 2 when you and I were doing the draft show for the Fanatic. We almost fell over our chairs. There's certain things in our careers that we'll never forget.
Right.
Jeff and I look at each other like, what the hell?
Like, why would you move up one spot?
No, that was the point though, was before they made the pick. We're like, no one had any idea. Even John Fox, I guess, said he had it clarified. I think he found out that morning that they were going to do it. He didn't know leading up to the draft. He found out the day of the draft that they were going to do it. And then Mahomes, the Chiefs traded up for Mahomes to numero
10.
10? Okay.
Yeah, it was 10.
Yep, 10. So yeah, and Trubisky too. Wow.
Right.
That it wasn't so much that Ryan Pace got fired that he passed on Mahomes. That wasn't the mistake as much as it was. Of course it was a mistake, but it was as much as taking Trubisky at 2. That's something he'll never be able to overcome in terms of personnel evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
So many teams were wrong on Mahomes. You and I know this. It's just it was so well in half the league did not like him. I would say maybe 5 or 6 teams really did.
Right.
Seahawks, the Chiefs, and a couple others we know about. But
but
Trubisky was a guy that beauty was the eye of the beholder, and Ryan Pace thought he was a beauty, and unfortunately it did not work out. But they did make the playoffs with him.
Right, and that's why the Bears have a new general manager as we speak. So they are rebuilding. Now the following year, Adam, Mayfield went 1 overall. Ryan Poles, right. Mayfield went 1 overall. Darnold went 3 overall, and Josh Allen went 7th overall. So the 3rd, and Lamar Jackson, of course, as we know, went 32nd.
Darnold went in 18, did he not? I thought Darnold went in 18.
I said the following year. So we were talking about the 2017 draft, and now I'm on So the better 2 quarterbacks were the 2. There were 4 quarterbacks taken that year in the first round. Quarterbacks number 3 and 4, Allen and Jackson, have been far better than quarterbacks number 1 and 2, which are Mayfield and Darnold. So that's why I say this class. Go ahead.
I was just going to say Mayfield was terrific in 2020. 21, not
too
much.
Very odd career.
Yeah,
I agree.
He's beat up physically. Yeah, and he's had. This will be. People talk about Jalen Hurts and all the offenses he's been in. no question, it's documented going back to high school.
Mm-hmm.
If over the last year, we haven't really talked about it much, but it's all out there. You can see it, and it does, continuity. So it is so big for Hurts, and Baker Mayfield had the same issue because he had Hugh Jackson, he had Freddie Kitchens, and then he had Kevin Stefanski. He just had a second year with Stefanski. 1 year, brilliant, really good. I mean, he was terrific in 2020. Right. He was well below average this past season, but he also tore his labrum in his left shoulder. Actually had 3 things with it, and major surgery done. He won't be ready till their OTAs at some point. And then you look at Hurts. The good thing for him is at least he's going to stay with the same coaches on offense, and they'll expand on it what they gave him last year. How much they expand is going to be interesting. That's a storyline in of itself. What more will they ask him to do that compared to last season?
So there's been a lot of talk. First of all, we I don't want to assume. We assume he'll be working with the same coaches. I mean, we're now more than 2 weeks removed from the end of the Eagles season, and there's been no announcements, which is fairly interesting for them. I mean, you would think that a lot. I don't know if that's other than Jonathan Gannon, who might get a head coaching job any second now or might not. You wonder if they're just going to go full steam ahead with the same staff, or there are going to be any changes. Normally, they've been pretty quick to announce their changes, but again, when you've got a new staff and Nick Sirianni said he was still evaluating his staff, and then you've got to see who becomes available. Like, all of a sudden you wake up one day and Sean Payton is retired. So, I mean, it's amazing how these things kind of happen. Now the Saints have to get in on a head coaching search, although they may just give it to Dennis Allen. We'll see. But.
Yeah, he's a good coach, man. He deserves it. He had at least one interview this time around, but there are technically 10 openings right now. It's just ridiculous. Though I expect 4 to 5 to go off the board. Dan Quinn should go off the board very soon. A couple others should go off very soon. Brian Dable should go off very soon. It'd certainly be an upset if he doesn't get a job. And interesting point here. This applies to the Eagles in a sense, potentially, if, as you say, if coaches change. And we saw this with Wentz. I was doing Fox Sports Radio with Rob Parker and Chris Broussard, and Broussard made a great point. Because Daboll's done an incredible job with Josh Allen, one of the biggest challenges of his life and his career in terms of football coach, because Josh Allen had terrible accuracy issues, and they basically have done he and Ken Dorsey what people thought was impossible. Make this guy a highly accurate quarterback compared to where he was when they drafted him and after the first year. And then you saw what happened with Wentz after DeFilippo and Reich left, particularly DeFilippo, because he was the one who really coached him from a technical standpoint. Mm-hmm. And then, you look at Brian Johnson here, who I know he goes way back with Hurts because he knew the family, knows the father, who's his dad's high school coach. But what happens, as you just said, what happens if Shane Steichen moves on at somewhere maybe he becomes an OC where he could call the plays.
Right.
These things could happen, and that does impact if you're not working. Like I know we were told Marty Mornhinweg worked a lot with Hurts in 2020. Mm-hmm. I think, just with some background stuff just to help him get acclimated, and so forth, because obviously he did pretty good work with McNabb many years ago. And you just don't know. When you lose coaches, it's a tough deal. Alex Smith went through this. You remember Jason Campbell? Remember Jason Campbell?
Jason Campbell, yeah.
He went through so many of them. It's definitely a factor. We're not saying the tape isn't what it is. Hurts' tape was not very good this past season, for the most part. Cosell gives it to us on the ITB TV, but overall, continuity is king. You really want to work with the same coaches if you can.
You bring up an interesting point about Steichen. I didn't think about it. If Jonathan Gannon gets a head coaching job, does his familiarity with Shane Steichen this past year make him want Shane Steichen for his play calling offensive coordinator, which is a better job than he's got here as a non-play calling offensive coordinator? We have seen that kind of not lateral, but lateral in title, but more responsibility. I think didn't John DeFilippo go from no, he went from quarterback coach to offensive coordinator when he left here.
Calling plays.
But he was the play caller, right? If he stuck around, he didn't know that Frank Reich was going to leave because nobody did.
No, that was
McDaniel left him at the altar.
That's a great point, because he didn't talking to the Eagles at that point. There was so much going on. The DeFilippo to Minnesota and Reich. Oh, it was Josh McDaniels pulling out of the Colts job.
Yes.
It all happened within a 48-hour period, and the hay was in the barn already. And the word around the team was that they they kind of already had made a decision that they were going to promote Mike Rowe as OC,
Mm-hmm.
and DeFilippo was never given the choice to stay as the OC with play calling. So the decision was kind of made for him. So he went to Minnesota, and the rest is history. But it is interesting. These musical chairs for the coaches, you make such a good point. We'll look into it. It's funny. They don't really announce them. What happens is they get reported, where we find out. You and I have the last couple of years, we probably put out about 6 or 7 of their changes over the years. In fact, you reminded me. I can't remember half the stuff we put out. So Chris Wilson, 2
Chris
years ago.
Wilson being out, Philip Daniel being out. We had last year that Aaron Moorhead was actually going to stay and be the first wide receivers coach to go 2 straight years for quite a while. So so we'll see. I guess as we sit here today, we have to see what happens with Jonathan Gannon, because that might cause a little bit of a domino effect. And the Eagles may have some decisions on other coaches that they're waiting. If the Eagles are going to be the ones to announce it and it's not going to be broken, they're going to wait until all decisions are made. They're not going to.
Yeah, they are like that. Great point. Yeah, it is true, because we've checked on these things before with this team, and they like to announce them, any coaching changes at the same time. Like because you generally, if you have the same head coach coming back, there are like 3 or 4 changes. You don't want to keep doing them like piecemealing it. You like to announce them at the same time. You're absolutely right. That's the way they've done it generally, not always, but generally here in Philly. But we'll see. I would expect some changes one way or the other, whether guys get promoted or they adjust the staff, just because this is what happens in Philly for whatever reason. It just, guys either move on, contracts. The other thing is, some guys are holdovers from Peterson's staff. We don't even know what their contractual situations were. Maybe their contracts were up.
Right. No, it's a good point. We'll find out. Q&A will be up Thursday morning, 6 a.m. as it always is. They're going to answer a lot of questions. They've had a lot of questions about Jalen Hurts. So they're going to do their best to break down Jalen Hurts from their vantage point, just like we have had with Greg Cosell. That'll be good. Also, a lot of questions for them on the playoff overtime rule, what they think of the new generation of quarterbacks with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Burrow. And wow, the AFC has some pretty good young quarterbacks, as I, rattle those off right there. So they'll give their impressions on that. And of course, the Eagles defense, what they think the Eagles defense needs to do going forward if Jonathan Gannon is still going to be the defensive play caller. So make sure you check that out. Like I mentioned, InsideTheBirds.com, good content there. Get your RSS feed. Everything is free. And also, please, I thank you. We got about 5 or 6 5-star reviews from Apple. So we will answer those questions probably in our Friday podcast.
Sure.
We'll make sure we get to those
questions.
Some great
really
questions. Appreciate it. Yeah, actually, I was glad you said that. I was like, wow, these are some really good questions.
We got emailed out. Now, one guy ripped us on Twitter. He likes our show a lot, but he did say that he's pissed off that our shows aren't at least an hour longer. I said, dude, did you listen to this show? Well, it's funny. I said, did you listen to this past show? He goes, yeah, but the other ones weren't. Some of the other ones weren't. I was like, all right. I mean, we're not going to just talk to talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Funny story. Leading up, we were, before we taped the show for Monday, we were talking. Let's try to get this done in 45 to 50 minutes. We wound up being an hour and 20. I mean,
yeah. Who does? Is there anybody that does 2-hour other than maybe like Joe Rogan or who has interviewers on and they sit there and they chop it up for 2 or 3 hours?
I mean, we're working on
a long time.
Well, we got one. I'm crossing my fingers. We're pretty certain we're going to have a big time guest this week. Will be one of the best guests we've ever had. I don't say the best because we've had some great ones, but this one might be an hour. We haven't taped it yet, but this guy said yes. We just have to figure out what day it's going to be.
Yes.
And right. You know what's going on, so I made you aware of the person.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Look forward to it.
Let's put it this way. I'm going to give you a small hint. Some of his answers will be blogged. I'll leave it at that. You'll know what I mean when you do it. And you go, folks, you'll go, that's what he meant. That's all I need to say.
It's a pretty fair assessment right there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, as I like to say. First, we want to tell everybody, remind them about our friends at Deal Dash. It is what do we call it? It's the world's largest penny auction website around, and it's been around forever. And Deal Dash It's an amazing app where you can win things, wonderful things, anything, kitchenware, houseware, tools, electronics. Adam Kaplan, his
No,
wardrobe. No, I'm just kidding. You can't get Adam, but maybe his wardrobe
I'm cheap.
on Deal Dash. You just bid pennies. Because it's the longest running penny auction website and app around. We've seen a car go for $900, brand new TV for less than $2. So don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want and get on Deal Dash. Go to dealdash.com or download the app. And when you do, register using the promo code ITB. That's where the money's at. The promo code. You got to use the promo code ITB to get a special offer for some bonus free bids. All right, let us get into the defensive review/preview. We'll start off with the defensive line, which is always where the money is made for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I have a feeling that this offseason is going to continue to be about building up the offensive line. Fletcher Cox is the big
You mean
kind of
D-line or offensive line?
I'm sorry, what did I say? I meant defensive line.
Yeah,
Let's
gotcha.
start off with the defensive line since this is a defensive review and preview. And that is where the money's made for the Eagles on defensive line. Derek Barnett. I was going to start off with Fletcher Cox, but I want to actually start off with Derek Barnett because I think you and I both agree.
D-ends then? Okay.
D-ends, yeah.
Okay.
You and I would probably both agree that he's not going to be back.
In my opinion is either a 1-year deal or he's not re-signed. Now, why would you even give him a year to come back? Again, I would say there's a small chance that he comes back. The only reason is this. Brandon Graham's coming off a major injury, right? Right now, he'd be a starter based on who's under contract. And this is the beauty of doing the show because we have to do a lot of research for this, and I learned a lot from the offensive side as we were doing it. Okay, so we know that Sweat's a starter. There's no debate there. He has to start. No matter who the D coordinators or no matter what scheme they run, he's starting. The contract says he's got to start by money. Got to start. And he's also very good. He closed the season exceptionally well. It's too bad. Thank goodness he's okay from the illness that he had, which is most important. Brandon Graham coming off a major injury. This is his last year, 22. They already say he's going to come back. That was great. That's a great thing that Roseman said that he ended any speculation there. That was the. Sometimes people say he doesn't say anything, and that's certainly true. But that was a good nugget because, quite frankly, there were questions because he's coming off a big injury. We know how much he means to the team, the organization, and all that. But he's an older player. It's always nice to have veterans on there. So we'll have to see, Geoff, when you and I are at OTAs, how he looks physically.
We will have to see. I think you make a lot of sense as far as why the Eagles would want to bring him back on a 1-year deal.
Barnett,
why I don't think that will happen is because I'd be surprised that if he could only get a 1-year deal from the Eagles. Now, maybe what you're saying is kind of like the Alshon Jeffrey thing from a couple of years ago where the Eagles give him a 1-year deal that has more guaranteed money than another team that's willing to offer him 2 years, but the guaranteed money isn't as much. And then he knows the scheme here. That's possible, but I just think with his age, he's still only 25 years old. And the fact that he's been a pass rusher, a starting pass rusher for the last 3 years, for the most part, he's had 6.5 sacks, had 5.5. I have a feeling he's going to get a multi-year deal. I really do.
From the Eagles,
and
or
I think it's
else?
From somebody else. From somebody else.
Yeah, man. He only turns 26 in June. A couple of issues with him is his injury history is there. We know that his weight seems to fluctuate. We're told in the offseason he seems to lose weight and he puts it back on. That's fine. But the fact of the matter is he's just an inconsistent player. He's put some good tape together, some not so good tape. Quite frankly, if you and I are making the call, we're going to move away from him. We understand there's not a lot of depth, and we're going to get into that. Ryan Kerrigan's also up. He obviously had a good game against the Bucs. He had to play a lot. I don't think he played the role that he was supposed to play. I think I just don't think that he was used to his best ability. His numbers were down, obviously. He was coming off the broken thumb. I know that had something to do with it, particularly early in the season. But he was not used the same way he was used with Washington, where he didn't play on the ball as much as he did in this scheme. He's playing on the ball a lot. So that as a stand-up pass rusher, I don't think he's real comfortable in it. So right now, the guys who are under contract as backups. Teron Jackson, who flashed a little bit. Right now, he would be the third end. We all know, everyone listening knows, you and I know, they're adding at least one in, if not two. Malvo, who flashed a little bit late, he's more of a project. He did resign for 2 weeks. Oh, by the way, so we checked into this, where there was only one of those offensive players that they resigned to future contracts through 23. The rest were on 22. They did a lot through 23 here, and we'll get through that. So Malvo's one of the guys signed through 23, so they clearly liked him enough. I know they could cut him at any time and not owe him any money. That's not the point. The point is that if he plays well, and this is why Howie Roseman does this, they got him at a bargain. Let's say he blows up, has 7 sacks. Guess what? He's not getting a new deal.
He gives me Cam Malvo gives me Steven Means vibes. He does. Like hard worker, persistent, motor, good athlete, lengthy,
Long,
just someone that you like to have around. Yeah.
Yep. Joe Ostman's back from his did he have an ACL this time around? I forget.
Joe Ostman. No, he got cut, didn't he?
No, he's
actually 2 years ago.
He's on the roster. No, what happened? Here's what happened. He was wave injured and went to IR. He was on IR the entire season.
What happened to him? It wasn't the ACL, right? That was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
I know. I don't know. I don't remember, but he is on the roster. I checked the NFLPA site just to make sure, and they list him as on the roster.
That's amazing. I've forgotten about Joe Ostman, to be honest with you. Jeez. All right.
So he's on. Not that he's going to make it, but I'll tell you what. They brought Matt Leo back through 22. He's got length. That's pretty much it. But he is really tall.
Yeah. So this is a position. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you got it. Go. I know where
it's a position that you really need to replenish. I mean, you need some young, dynamic talent because you're the Eagles, and this is a position that you prioritize. I mean, you need it anyway, but I mean, as much as we watched the great games over the weekend and said, man, you can't win without these elite quarterbacks, you'll notice there are some pretty damn good pass rushers on the field for these teams too, between Bosa in San Francisco and Frank Clark with Kansas City. Von Miller and Aaron Donald, even though Donald's a DT. But, the point is these guys all rush the passer. And the Eagles are a little long in the tooth here, obviously, with Brandon Graham. Josh Sweat's young, but he's got kind of mileage on the knees. He did make it through this year. Only was on the injury report a couple of times, I think, for knee and got some rest. So that was good. But really, he started off the year as a situational pass rusher, then became a starter when Brandon Graham went down. So it was Sweat.
That's right.
Him. And, we asked Greg Cosell in the pregame show that if you look at the sacks for the team, they're very low. I think they finished second to last in sacks. If you look at some PFF or other stat analytic websites, they'll tell you that these guys individually generally win in their pass rush win rate. So it's kind of a strange thing. Well, you're winning your pass rush win rate, but you're not getting any sacks. Are you moving the quarterback off the spot enough? And it felt like, Adam, that there were times that there were, and then there felt like there are times they were not. And usually they were not when they were going up against a really good quarterback. So it was a very Jekyll and Hyde type of year for the defensive line. But I think that when you know who the Eagles are, what their identity is, and you look at this defensive line, you say, okay, it's good, but it's not dynamic like it used to be. It used to be dynamic from middle to end. And right now it's a little bit more dynamic in the middle than on the end. But with Fletcher Cox not even being as dynamic as he used to be, it's lost its luster and depth over the years.
Yeah, I agree. They need to replenish the rotation. I understand this is not 2017. You can't, they're not going to have like eight-man rotation. But
a rotation.
It's crazy. But you know what? Look at the great job they've done on the offensive line. I was going through, I spent like an hour looking at all teams just to see what the comparison would be. There's no other team that could compare the Eagles' depth in the offensive line. None. Now, a non-educated Eagles fan who doesn't really know the team, or a non-Eagles fan, I should say, who doesn't know the Eagles very well, will look at this. Who are these guys? They don't have a lot of depth. These guys aren't any good. Wrong. A lot of these guys are really good. It's Jeff Stallin's obviously the man, and even Jack Anderson's got talent. Or even Clark's back. So we talked about this in the previous show.
Right.
But defensive line, they just don't have a lot in the rotation. Partially because the guys are not under contract. Who's got Barnett's up, Kerrigan's up. You meant Osman's definitely on the roster. Eagles website actually has him on there too, so that confirms it.
Gotcha. I just wish I remember what injury he had now.
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know. I remember not being right physically, and he got hurt, and they put him on. Well, because I remember we saw him in training camp.
Right.
He's built low to the ground, and next thing I know, he's on injured IR out for the year. He got wave injured. No one claimed him, so he reverts to IR because he's not vested.
Mm-hmm.
But moving this forward here, they just don't have depth. They have no rotation right now. There's like next to no depth. So Malvo is right now to me he's a fifth end. That's what he is until he proves otherwise. With upside though,
Yeah.
that's Jackson's like a fourth end. And then here's the other thing is if Gannon is back, is he going to make adjustments to the scheme? Or
Well, that's a good question. That's a good point. I mean, part of me thinks that if Gannon is back, they're going to work with him on getting him the type of players that he needs for both the front end and the back end that will look different. And he may want a linebacker, well, like kind of Jannard Avery. He may want a better version of Jannard Avery to be someone who can rush the passer like a defensive end, but also drop into coverage, unlike a traditional Eagles defensive end. We use Anthony Barr as a name all the time because he came from New England. I mean, not New England, because Jonathan Gannon had roots in Minnesota. But I mean, there's more. He's not the only one. Patriots linebackers do the same. There's a lot of them. TJ Watt, he can drop back a little bit, although he mostly rushes the passer. But just kind of that guy that you normally associate with a 3-4 team. But you've seen them more now in 4-3 teams, just being multiple up front. The Eagles are still a 4-3 team, I would say, mostly in their construct. They're not a conventional 3-4 just because they show a 34 front at times, right, Adam? They kind of alternate their identity back and forth.
Technically, if you have to actually break down the numbers, but because Avery plays on the ball, and they're 5-2 when he's on the field. That's right. He's an on the ball defender.
Right.
We did see this in training camp. I still was surprised that I just thought he'd get a better chance to rush the passer. See the same with Kerrigan. I thought, now some people might say tape wasn't great. Maybe he doesn't move as well. I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, again, if Gannon is still running this defense, I would hope that, and Avery's, by the way, unrestricted free agent. We'll talk about the linebackers later. But overall, you're right. When you go through this, in year 2 here, I'm fascinated to see what the adjustments would be. And obviously, they'll draft people. Knowing the Eagles are good, we'll get some of the cap numbers that have been reported are not correct. We were told it's because the recalculations haven't been done. Right. Unless they come from the club, the NFL stuff, the NFLPA site's rarely correct. Sometimes they're $2 million off, sometimes they're as much as $8 million off. They have to get all the recalculations done. Right. But the point is true. They're going to have a lot of cap space.
Yeah.
So they're barring something unforeseen. I mean, they're going to be in pretty good shape, and we expect them this year to be aggressive. And I expected DN and free agency to come in.
Yeah, I would think DN in free agency, veteran in free agency, probably on a 1-year deal, maybe 2, like they did with Chris Long, and then probably addressed at least once and maybe multiple times in the NFL draft. By the way, Osman was waived injured after having a concussion that kept him out for over a week of practice. So it must have been a pretty traumatic one, I guess, I would think. Then he reverted back. So, on the roster technically, and we'll see going forward with him. So that rounds up your defensive end look. Defensive tackle, Adam. Fletcher Cox is the big question mark. I know I've said for a while that I think it would, if you're going to give Javon Hargrave an extension this year, this offseason, which I think they're going to want to do, 2 years into a 3-year deal, coming off a very good year, then it might be difficult to do that and have Fletch. But the bottom line is, if you get rid of Fletch, you're taking the cap hit regardless. So I get the sense maybe now, thinking about it, Adam, that if they can't find value in a trade, like decent value, then maybe they just play it out one more year with him. I mean, he's still good to have. He's still better than replacement level defensive tackle. And if you have to take that, like, you don't have anybody right now, right, that you're just going to plug in that's going to be that much better than Fletcher Cox, unless you draft a guy in the first round. But even if you did that, you'd probably want to rotate him in like you did with Barnett in 2017. So I don't know. I mean, I think they'd have to get some pretty good value to move him. Don't you think?
Here's the question. Is Milton Williams ready to start? Because he was tremendous in his role. I cannot tell you. I've talked to so many people, watched their tape, throw the numbers out. The tape is phenomenal. Over the final, like he flashed every now and then in the first half of the season. The second half of the season, he became a major player.
Yeah, that is a
Not only
fair
is their
point.
third tackle, the question is this: is he a starter? If he is, Cox is gone. They're not cutting him; they would trade him. If they don't think he's a starter, I still think you could draft someone because right now they don't have a fourth or fifth defensive tackle. What I mean by that is Tui Pelotu did not contribute. He has to prove that he could be on the team. Marvin Wilson was another player who they liked enough. They gave him a 2-year future contract instead of one.
Right.
Sean Ridgeway is up. How many years is he with them? 3 off and on?
He's like a cat, man. The guy got more lives, and he's always on the team. He actually was healthy all year this year, but I would say he was not as productive as he has been in the past. And I think he was a liability at times against the run when they had to play their second string D line against the run. In fact, he lost snaps to Milton Williams, as you were saying, later in the year on that second string run line. So
early, dude, he was playing early. He was playing over Ridgeway the entire season.
All right. I agree with you. He was. I would say this. If I'm Howie, this is just me. All right.
Okay.
If I don't get anything of legit value for Fletcher Cox, like if people are throwing like 6s and 5s at me, and I think Milton Williams is ready to start, I'm keeping Fletch, letting him play out. I'll get a good comp pick if he walks, and then I will just I will play him fewer snaps, and I will let Milton Williams may not start, but he's going to wind up playing 65% of the game.
You're not going to get a comp pick because he signed through 2023.
Oh, that's right. You can't release him. It's not like it's a good point. It's a good point.
And he's got it's funny. When did we do that dummy year show? 2 yeyears ago or last year? I can't. 2 years ago.
It was last year because that's when
people
all
love
those
that show.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it again, but we'll mention him as we go through this. So Cox he's signed through 23. He's got 3 dummy years. Hargrave, this is the last year of his deal, and Milt Williams is through 2024. Tui Pelotu through 24. Marvin Wilson, who never played for him, 2023.
Right.
They have to add a D tackle. They don't have a choice. They have to. You make a good point. They're not going to give Cox away. I would not take less than a 4. Excuse me, less than a 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either.
To the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he'll always start, but you can play a lot more of Milton Williams if you like him that much, and start that kind of passing of the torch.
Good point.
I mean, that's what they did with with Derek Barnett. They drafted him in the first round, but he was a rotational pass rusher as a rookie who played a lot. Him and Chris Long would get in there on those pass rushing downs. Vinny would come off, and I think one of the defensive tackles would come off, and then it would be Chris Long, it would be Barnett, it would be Brandon Graham inside, and then it would be Fletcher Cox. So I mean, you got some optionality here, and then we'll see what they do in the draft anyway. But I'm with you. I wouldn't just get rid of him to get rid of him. So,
I don't think
it. Yeah, go ahead.
To be honest with you, they weren't going to do it. They were not going to trade him. I mean, they had interest, but it just would have, the dead money would have been so significant to hit immediately. They would have had to do a lot of roster adjustments. I don't know how they could have done it. I remember looking into it. It just seemed to be very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult. It wouldn't be worth their time. You could go through a lot of pain. If someone's going to give you a first-round pick, you would go through the pain. I mean, if you're going to trade Cox, if you get a first-round pick, you go through the pain, and it kills you with the cap. Whatever the case may be, you figure out a way to do it. Now it's still not great. It's still, but you post June 1 you get 2 of them. You post June 1, you tag the trade with that, and you split the cap it over 2 years. You can live with it, but I don't see them moving for less than a 3. Now, I don't know. They didn't seem to set a price. There was never any price from what we understand. It was just talk. People would ask, trade calls, you ask, hey, you ask about players. That's all. It doesn't mean he's going to be traded.
Sure.
Nothing was close from what we understand, no matter what the speculation was. But we'll see. I just don't see them moving him for less than a 3 based on the fact that this guy still could play. He's not the same player he once was. We all know this. But what you do is you hold him, like let's say for the draft, right? Because I still think they're going to draft a D tackle. Unless a team that's going to go, because the team who would trade for him is obviously going to think they're going to make a playoff run. Well, you have leverage because that team thinks that they've got a shot to win a Super Bowl. That's what I think would happen, and that's when you get leverage and try to get at least a 3.
Sounds great. That makes a lot of sense. All right, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB and get 56-1 odds on any NFL team. Any NFL team. Like there's a lot left. There's only 4 left, but that's okay. 56-1 odds on any other ones left. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if that team wins. That's promo code ITB for 56-1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Got to be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's get into our favorite position to talk about, linebacker.
I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
It's even more barren than I thought.
What? How is that possible?
I don't know because here's why. Okay. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the weeds here, as they say. All right, so T.J. Edwards is only back for the season. Typical of the Eagles, three dummy years tacked onto the back of his contract for signing.
What? Why did they do that?
Why'd they do it?
They gave him an extension, which is going to up his cap number, but it wasn't that much money.
I know. The proration is so small. It's 237,000 per year. This year, 23 and 24.
But the point is, because linebackers can accrue a lot of tackles, and they always get signed in free agency, this guy is a guy who, if you weren't going to keep after next year, could have walked into free agency, maybe signed a decent deal, and gotten you a comp pick back. But now you add dummy years.
Dummy years don't count against the compensatory formula. It doesn't impact it. It doesn't.
Well, you told me when. All right, when did we say Cox was signed through? Then I'm sorry, I got confused.
Cox is signed through 23 plus. Cox is signed through 23, and there are 3 dummy years tacked on the back of it.
Right. Next year is 2022. So then it would be another year. Yeah,
this year is
right.
2022.
Okay. That's what. Yeah. Okay.
Just got 2 years. My
fault. I take back the comment. Add all the dummy years you want. Who cares?
Yeah. So Edwards is on a 1-year extension. 20. So we signed just for this coming season, and to thin out the proration, they got 3 dummy years. Even on a 1-year low deal, okay? So T.J. Edwards signed a 1-year extension. Let me open my file here for $2.15 million. Signing bonus $1.35 million, and they prorated the signing bonus out.
Wait, I have a question. I have a question. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you.
Sure.
Because here's what I don't understand. These dummy years are intended to spread signing bonus money out. So you do count, even if you're not on team, they count a little bit against cap each year. So because you're technically, it's a contract year, don't you have to be released at the end of the last non-dummy year?
No, the contract would have to expire. Like, you mean for compensatory?
Yeah, because it's not technically an expiring contract, right? Because you have extra years.
It is. It's only a 1-year deal. The league only sees it a 1-year deal.
I'm surprised the league allows that. Okay, that seems
they do it in all deals.
Strange.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just surprised.
There are like literally hundreds of deals done like this now. A lot of the teams frown on it because of the Bucks were the one team would never do it because they wanted to run it back. The great Mike Greenberg, who does their contracts, they had to do it to bring everyone back. They did some things that our friend Mark Dominic would not do. When he was the GM of the Bucks, he started that. Mark told me when he worked at ESPN that. I asked him, like, where did you come up with this at? He's like, I don't want any proration. He's like, we're not doing that. We're giving them fully guaranteed base salaries. That's it. No signing bonuses. I was like, okay. The Raiders.
There's upsides to that too. You don't get stuck with any money in the future or dead cap when you do it that way.
That's 100% what he said. In fact, I remember Jason Light's first free agent class. There were a bunch of free agents who didn't work out. And I just remember because the contract structure was so good, they didn't get zapped. They just took it all 1 year. You didn't have to because they didn't there was no signing bonus proration, so they didn't they didn't accelerate all that dead money into 1 year. So it's they got through it.
Gotcha. Okay. So TJ Edwards is on a 1-year deal.
Yes.
Davion Taylor will come back for year 3. And how costly are these first 2 years? That's what I'm saying, because this is the year where after year 3, you got to decide whether you want to give a guy an extension or not. I mean, you don't have to, but it's always team. That's what you want to be able to do. But this guy has really not been able to develop as fast as you want, and he needed it more than anybody because of his pedigree.
Right. Although he did improve, like his
Oh yeah, yeah,
offseason was good, but
yeah.
unfortunately he had a significant. He had two injuries. We know what one was bad enough to knock. It was a knee surgery, right? Is that what he had?
Well, let's see. It started off as a quad, no, a hamstring. Then it became a
This is
quad.
crazy. Yeah, go
The
ahead.
quad knocked him out for quite a while, and then he had re-aggravation of the quad, and then his surgery though was either knee or ankle. It was separate. So
All right,
yeah,
now
it
I'm gonna.
was a third different injury that he sustained.
Yeah, it's a shame because they drafted him to be the nickel linebacker, which is a big in today's NFL because teams played like next to no base.
Right.
Boy, this is like so changed since you and I started covering the league. Everyone's about base. Hell no, not knee surgery. Yeah, he had knee surgery. Yeah,
Right.
and he went on IR week 12. So yeah, so that's it. So really at linebacker now, this is how bad it is. Okay, TJ Edwards is a nice find for them as an inside linebacker. Taylor returns. The backups are Patrick Johnson, who every once in a while would play, did some decent things. Cosell likes him. Greg talked about him. Jacoby Stevens, who was cut. Then he re-signed to a future contract through 23, so they really want to look at him. Sean Bradley's a special teams player only, signed through 24. Luther Ellis' son Christian did sign through 23, so they apparently like what they saw from him. But here's the thing, folks: they have one starting linebacker for sure, T.J. Edwards, Davion Taylor. If they're a 5-2, if they're a 5-2 team, okay, he'll be one of their two starting linebackers most likely. But we know they should. They're I would say they're almost certain to draft somebody or sign a veteran free agent. I don't think they have
Oh,
a choice.
I would think that they might do both.
Oh,
I
really?
would think.
Okay.
Well, you didn't. Did you mention Alex Singleton? I know he's going to be a
He's
restricted
up.
free agent, right?
RFA, yeah. So okay, I was going to get to the free agent. So Jernard Avery's up. He's a free
Right.
agent. Did a nice job in his role, but I'd like to see more pass rush. We'll see. And then Alex Singleton is restricted free agent who will either get the low tenor or they'll let him walk. Great job of rebounding after he got demoted for Davion Taylor. So, this is this scheme. Linebackers are farther back than most schemes. So he had to get used to it, but he did a good job of rebounding. So that's it. They just under contract. They really only have two guys to project to start right now. And even so, I don't know about Davion Taylor, as you said.
It would not surprise me if they were fairly aggressive in signing a mid-level linebacker, kind of like when they signed Nigel Bradham a couple of years ago for Jim Schwartz's defense, and then also drafted a linebacker fairly high. And I'm going to say it now. I think there's a chance they might draft a linebacker in the first round this year. Not like I wouldn't say like a 50% chance or higher, but I think that there's just I feel, and this is not reporting. I don't have trust me, bloggers. This is just me speculating, just on the fact that what's my favorite phrase, Adam? What's my favorite phrase for when I'm picking games for wins and losses? What am I a big believer in?
Law of averages?
Law of averages, right?
Yes.
We know
I
it's
remember
been an
that.
eternity since
Yeah.
the Eagles have drafted an on-the-ball linebacker.
Or a linebacker,
Uh,
a real
or a
linebacker,
real
true linebacker,
linebacker. Sure,
79.
sure. Right.
One of my favorite Eagles of all time back then, growing up.
Jerry Robinson?
Number 56, yeah, out of UCLA.
Okay.
He was super athletic, man. He was a player,
Yeah.
really good player. He was on the Super Bowl team.
Mhm.
That's crazy. I don't see it. I'll bet you on that one. I'll give you 100-1 odds that they don't do it. A true line, not a hybrid, not a /DN/pass rusher. No, I'm talking about a true
Yeah, no, an
linebacker. It ain't
on-the-ball
happening.
linebacker, right.
Yeah.
So, 100 to 1 odds means that there's a chance, brother. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not, normally, like last year I said if there were 32 Micah Parsons available in the draft, the Eagles would have traded down as many times as possible to get out. But this year that this
what?
year that's right. If there were 32 Micah Parsons in the NFL draft last year, the Eagles would have just kept trading into the second round. I think here's why I think it's possible, Adam. It's not that I think that they're going to over prioritize the position, but they do have positional value. It is pass rusher. It used to be cornerback. It probably will be again. I think they would have taken Surtain last year if he was available. I would say that there's a chance that some of these
They
pass
were
rushers
split. Just so you know, I think they were split.
Yes. between Surtain and Smith.
No, Surtain. No, in terms of corners, though, Smith was the
Oh,
higher rated player. In terms of
okay.
corner, Surtain and Horn were the two
And
guys that
Horn.
they liked.
Right.
If this is going back almost a year now, obviously. So I just remember what we were hearing was they sort of were, they like both corners, but it's a
Right.
moot point. They drafted Smith.
Well, wasn't Horn already gone by the time Horn
No,
was
but I'm
pretty.
just saying in general
Oh,
how
okay.
they looked at both players.
Right. Right. So clearly the positional value was there. They liked those two guys enough to take them at that spot if they were there and that was going on. So, so I guess the point I was going to make is that those are also two positions that often go high in the draft. You see the run on corners early. You tend to see a run on pass rushers early. And I just wonder if you're getting there at 15, 16, and then 19, if the chart says, hey, our best player is a linebacker, where in the past they may not have done it. Sometimes this franchise, we'll see them overcorrect. We'll see them correct some mistakes that they've made.
This is all I'll tell you. When they took Jalen Hurts, you could have pushed me over with a feather. That's why I say never say never.
There you go.
It took me easily 48 hours to try to figure that one out. Like when people go crazy, or surprised the Eagles do, I'm not really surprised by it. I know, we either have intel on it. That's not a big deal. It's not surprising.
Right.
That one was so surprising. No one around the league could understand it. To this day, I still don't get it. But hey, he's their starter, so it worked out. At least for
right. I just wonder. I mean, if they get to a point, this happened to them in the Marcus Smith year. I think is the year that they had 5 guys that all went bing, 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 bing in a row.
Yes.
Like it was that they all really liked, and then they traded down, right? Because they traded with the Cleveland to get Manziel, and then they wound up moving down, and then I think they took Marcus Smith, if I remember correctly. That was that year.
Well, Manziel. Well, I know Marcus Smith was 14. Manziel was 14 as well? Yes.
Right. So that's what happened. They had a bunch of guys. They all went bing, 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 bing. Cooks and Clinton Dix and somebody else, and so they traded down. And then wound up taking Marcus Smith. So one of my point is, if they have a bunch of guys that are highest on their list, and those guys are off the board, the pass rushers, the corners, and Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd is sitting there for them, and then their next best options they don't have high grades on, I realize I'm just inventing a scenario here, right? But it's possible. So I don't think that they would do it this time. We're going to say, we're just going to trade out unless they got some great offer or something.
Well, let's put it this way. Patrick Johnson's not a true linebacker to me. That kind of guy, yes. A guy could rush the passer.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's a strong side linebacker in this type of hybrid scheme that they run. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about a true linebacker like T.J. Edwards. That ain't happening. There's no chance it'll happen.
You don't think so? No Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd. Not.
I don't know.
You wouldn't even leave the door a little bit open for that.
Cannot comment on any of those guys until I get scouting reports of exactly how the league sees these guys.
Gotcha.
I'm not talking draft right now. I'm just telling you what I'm drafted players. I'm just talking about philosophy will not change. It was going to change with running back. We reported
I meant to bring that up, Adam. Thank you. Yeah. The Christian McCaffrey. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I put it out the night of the draft that says it's going to be McCaffrey. If they you'd asked me, you put me on the spot. I said I could wind up being wrong, and I can't believe it's going to happen. But I'm told if McCaffrey's there, they're taking him. I got it from 2 very plugged-in sources. And then we'll never know because he went before they picked.
Right.
And asking people who would know afterwards, is it true? They said, yeah, it was going to be the guy. There are the guys they liked, but it was going to be McCaffrey because they just saw him as such a unicorn.
Sure.
But I just don't see a true linebacker. Now, again, this is not the scheme that they're running under Gannon is a little different than probably even he thought he'd be running because he doesn't have quite the personnel, I think. And if he's back doing what he was doing, if he doesn't get the Texas head coaching job. But I see a hybrid player. I don't see a true linebacker. I could see not Micah Parsons type that whatever. We'll learn more about these players.
Well, I agree with you there, but they may take that guy 15 and then now you're up at 16 or now you're up at 19 and the best player on your board is an on-the-ball linebacker.
They're taking a hybrid player. There's no way in hell they're taking a true middle.
I'm saying if they already have taken the hybrid guy at 50. Oh, you're saying no matter what, even no matter who it is, they'll take 2 hybrid players. Okay.
No, they're not.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, they could take, again, they could take a D end who's got length because if Gannon's running the same scheme as he did last year, you're going to want to get longer guys at the end. Guys
Mm-hmm.
are like Malvo. Of course, Malvo. I'm just talking about length. Guys are long. Brandon Graham is not. He's between 6'1" and 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, we'll find out what the Vikings felt in that 2010 draft. But I just remember putting it out there that the Vikings were going to pass on Graham because his arms were too short for their scheme that they're running. Whoever the head coach was, I don't remember, from 2010. But yeah, they got to get length so we can move off of this. They need length. You can't. They're too small at linebacker. They've got to get bigger.
They do. So if they don't in the first, obviously, again, they're going to draft somebody at some point, and then I would look for them to sign a linebacker as well. Now, you and I will forget this conversation in like 4 or 5 days, but I'm sure our listeners will remind us the day after the draft. If they wind up, if I was right, they'll say, "Hey, Mosher, you were right about that for once." Or Monster, is that what they call me, Geoff Monster?
Oh,
you were right about that.
people love getting on your case on the YouTube boards. It's so funny they can't spell your name right. It's either Jeff or Masher. One guy called you Jeff Monster, and I'm like, this has got to be a troll or a prank.
Intentional, yeah. That's okay.
I don't think it was based on what the guy said.
No, it was intentional, is what I'm saying. He was using.
I don't know. How the hell do you know, man? Because I get screwed up on autocorrect, man. Sometimes I don't.
That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway. You never know. I've been called worse, though. I'll tell you that. I promise you that. All right, let's take a break and remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. Make sure you're checking out all their great work at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, let's move on to the secondary. Adam, you want to go with corners first? This is an interesting position.
Yep. It's yet another one. As we go through this, they need more help than I imagined, and I'll explain why. We know that Steven Nelson's up, so they don't have a number 2 corner right now. Darius Slay has signed through 23. He's got 2 dummy years tacked onto his deal.
Of course he does.
Yep. Maddox has signed through 24. He's got 3 dummy years tacked onto his deal. So they've got him for 3 seasons, 22, 23, and 24. They don't have any outside backups who they know they could go in with. Zach McPherson's he's got to prove himself. He was up and down. He wasn't ready. He did improve, as we understand it, as the season progressed. But right now, you can't say that he's their top backups outside corner.
Right.
Josiah Scott is competing for a spot on the roster. He signed through 23. Craig James, this is interesting. Of all these guys who got future contracts on defense, he was one of the few to only be signed through 22. He didn't get through 23.
Yeah. How are you like 35 years old and getting a futures contract? That's
Craig James. Craig James.
I know. I was kidding because he has been around for quite a while now.
You see, yeah. Well, so this would be. Wait a minute. You know what? When you say that, they got him in 19, right?
Yeah.
Could this be his 4th year on and off with his football team?
Yeah, that's why I made the joke. It's like, how do you call it a futures contract when he's been on the team for 4 years now?
So he
Adam, he's been in the league since 2018.
Yeah, so the Vikings cut him. And then the Eagles, he passed their waivers. The Eagles signed him to the practice squad. Yeah, wow, this would be his 4th. How does the time fly?
Now, get this. He's only 25 years old. As much as I joked about it seems like he's been around forever. He's only 25.
Yeah.
Remember, Craig James came in that Green Bay game.
I know. I was going to say that.
They won in Green Bay, right? And I think he broke up the pass in the end zone of Devontae Adams, right?
He did. You know why he did?
Helped them win the game.
Because they couldn't find
Sidney Jones, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Listen,
man, they couldn't find Sidney Jones for 3 years. I tell you that. Other team could, though.
Yeah, Seattle was playing him. He missed some time, but did okay. Tay Gowan, who they made the trade for in the Ertz trade, he signed through 24. Mac McCain, he did get the 2-year deal, the future deal, signed through 23, and Kerry Vincent signed through 24. Who was acquired? How was he acquired?
Trade with the Broncos for who the hell did they trade to the Broncos? It was
for showing the
right
talent.
before the trade. It was 3 days before the trade deadline too. And no, not the Broncos.
They
Was
gave him
it?
a sixth,
Yeah.
right? They gave him
It
sixth
was.
line.
Yeah, it was for. I guess it was for a draft pick. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
again, they have two. There are only two players in the Eagles at corner who know what their roles are: Schley and Maddox. Everyone else has no role yet. McPherson's got to
Man,
prove himself. We'll have to see. They got a lot of work. Holy smokes! I
listen,
cannot believe how much work they have to do.
and I got ripped for it, but I listen. The Eagles are an improved team from a year ago. Trust me, I'm not denying that. But you can't also deny the fact that the questions that you had surrounding the Eagles, especially on defense after the 2020 year when they went 4-11-1, are very similar to the questions they have right now, both at starter and depth on
That's
their
what you were
defense.
talking about,
And
right?
that's what
That's
I'm
I get
saying.
it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
fair, but where they're so much better, light years as offensive line, it's not even comparable to 20. It's not just the injuries. They're guys who played in 20 are better now. Driscoll's a player. We didn't know how good of a player he was going to be.
Right.
We don't. This is not a referendum on their offensive line. It's now arguably the NFL's best, and their depth is ridiculous. And
Yes.
as I was saying earlier, I mean, people who aren't Eagles fans look at this and go, "What are you talking about?" Well, it's I didn't believe it either, but I got to give Jeff Stalin needs to run for O-line mayor of the NFL.
The guy gets no head coaching interviews. I mean,
Sure,
it's
that's a great point. Someone
unbelievable.
asked us that on Twitter. I didn't know how to respond to that. It's kind of like these special teams coaches are sort of unknowns.
Uh-huh.
Dave Tobe, who was here in Philly under Andy,
Yeah.
many moons ago.
Yep.
So he's a great coach. He interviewed for the Chargers head coaching job. One of them, whoever I can't remember, it was many years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a good point though, because these guys, I get it. They're not play callers. For special teams they are, but they're not. Who cares? They're leaders. But
Listen, man. Yeah, I'm shocked. I'm stunned because Philadelphia is a big market, and Jeff Stoutland gets a lot of notoriety to the point where I feel like you hear when the Eagles were on prime time, which they were like three times this year. You hear Jeff Stoutland's name a lot, kind of like you would hear Dante Scarnecchia's name all the time when he was coaching the Patriots because they were on prime time, and you knew how good he was. Kind of like who was the Greg Aversano, right? When he was a special teams coach for the Cowboys back in the 90s. Joe Aversano, right. The late Joe Aversano.
Yeah.
Right. You would hear the name. Jeff Stoutland is a guy whose name you hear a lot when the Eagles are on national television. So you feel like that there would be. I'm just shocked. I know that there's a unspoken like kind of offensive line coach bias. So you don't see a whole lot of former offensive linemen head coaching in the NFL. The last one I can remember, I guess, is Tom Gable.
Tom Campbell who's the O-line coach of the Raiders, yes.
Yeah, it's just not a position that's looked upon where, that's future head coaching material. But we are gravitating toward an era, I think, of where people are looking more for leaders of men at some point than they are
That's what I
and
mean.
emotional intelligence.
That's what I mean.
If you know anything about Stoutland, that's where he excels the most.
Players love him, adore him. And by the way, it's not just the offensive lineman, the front office.
Yep.
The other players from other positions, they know he's a stud. Did you hear Miles Sanders talked about him some weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy. Also, Deuce Staley's another guy. Like, do your homework, teams.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
do your homework. Just because a guy's a position coach doesn't mean he can't be a head coach. Oh, you talked about offensive line coaches who became head coaches. The guy who was the Titans head coach who had a disagreement with, I can't remember. He did a good job. He guy's in the Hall of Fame. What's guy name escapes me.
Gosh,
Denver.
Art Shell? No. But Art Shell was a head coach, right?
Right, but I'm with Denver's guy.
I can't think of it right now.
Yeah,
but to use the Titans real quick as an example, Mike Vrabel is a linebacker. You do not see a lot of linebacker head coaches. But
no, he was a D coordinator though for 1 year with the Texans.
Sure, and I'm sure that Jeff Stoutland could be an offensive. I mean, he is the run game designer, and that's their best. Oh, of course. Duh. I'm sorry, Mike Munchak. I don't know how I forgot that one. Yeah, right, Mike Munchak, another good example. I mean, it surprises me. It really does. I get the positional bias there, although not that I agree with it. I'm just saying I know that it exists.
Mm-hmm.
But this is I'm surprised, but that's good for the Eagles. You know what? They don't want to have to lose them, so that's good. Yep. Back to the cornerbacks, though. I'm wondering, Adam, if just based on some of the intel that we've gathered, right? I'm going to take 4 guys here. All the guys that they acquired from somebody else: Scott from Jacksonville, Gowan from Denver, I think it was. No, Arizona. McCain from Denver and Kerry Vincent from Denver. Any of those 4 guys that you think has a better than average shot because of anything intel you gathered on them?
Just to make the team, you mean?
Yeah, to really compete next year.
They've done nothing to show that they're in the rotation yet. No.
Right. No, again, I meant based on intel that you like. Somebody said, yeah, I like his upside, or he just needs to be coached.
Well, you like Gowan's got really good upside, but he's a project.
Right.
These are all OTAs, May and June OTAs. Show that you will be brought to training camp, and to show that you could dress every week. Right now, they have 2. They only have 2 corners who we know that the roles are without question.
Mm-hmm.
I believe McPherson will be in. Well, I know he will be, but he needs to show it.
Right.
McPherson's need to show it that he can be their top backup outside corner. Right now, we don't know that. Mm-hmm. I would expect a minimum of 2 corners added for the draft or free agency, whatever they want to do.
Agree.
Now, obviously, Nelson would count if they bring him back. It would count as one of them, but they can't line up today. Not that you're lining up now in January, but I'm just saying they have a lot of work to do on defense, man. I would say they're pretty barren. They're pretty barren on defense on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Here at safety, as we go through this, I just cannot believe how. I mean, man, I thought it was better than this. In terms of depth. They don't have any depth.
None. Well, they don't technically have any starters either because McLeod and Harris are both expiring contracts.
Oh, Epps is starting. By the way, barring a shock, I'd be shocked. I'm not surprised. I know it's a little strong to say this, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't start.
Right.
22 is the last year of his rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
I would be shocked if he doesn't start. He's been a good story. He really has. We talked about him, occasionally. We talked. I know Cosell and Yvonne talked about him on our pregame show. He did a good job. He's a player, man. He just is very consistent. But as you said, McLeod's up, Harris is up. This is incredible. They have 3 safeties under contract. Epps, who we just mentioned. Kevon Wallace who's just a box player. I don't know if he'll ever be a factor.
Right.
Hey, he's got an opportunity. There's opportunity. Jared Baden, another player who was only on special teams when he was active. He got the future contract through 23. So again, the Eagles have a lot. They obviously like these guys where they want to keep them under team control for 2 years because they like them enough that they want to see him longer. So that's it, man. Mm-hmm. It's all about opportunity, folks.
And by the way, when we talk about Marcus Epps, who we like, he is a player, he has flashed. We also have to keep this into the perspective of the Eagles are not really blessed with great talent, and nor have they been at safety. So kind of like the TJ Edwards thing. TJ Edwards is a good Eagles linebacker. Does TJ Edwards start for most teams? No. Maybe in a base as a third linebacker against the run. Does Marcus Epps start at safety for most teams? Probably not. So even when we're talking positively about Epps, as we should, when you still compare it to the rest of the league, look at the division. I mean, is he as good as what Xavier McKinney is going to be for the Giants, or Jaron Kearse, who plays that third safety role for Dallas, plays it really well. That's where I stop and say, yes, he's good, but we're also putting that in the context of he's good for the Eagles, but is he good by NFL safety standards? Maybe.
He's got decent enough size, 6 feet, 200. He's been with the Eagles for a while now. We kind of know he's gotten gradually better. He's just a good football player. Now, if they draft 2 safeties or sign 2 safeties, maybe he doesn't start.
Mm-hmm.
But I just got to believe, because he's one of the few guys in the secondary that are young that actually show really good improvement. I just don't see, if you're the Eagles, how you don't pencil him in. Well, they don't have any. They only have 3 that are on contract now. Shashiri, I need to figure out if he's restricted. The Eagles website lists him as restricted. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know if he had enough games active, because there's a rule you need to be active on the active roster a certain amount of games.
Well, he was active for almost every game, was he not?
No, but over 3 years to be.
Okay. Where did he come from? I forget. Minnesota or Indianapolis, right?
Right, and I need to find out whether he's exclusive rights or restricted.
Okay. Well, they should bring him back because he was a good special teams player.
Yeah. No, he's back. I'm not talking. What I'm talking about is he restricted or exclusive rights is not even a free agent technically. You are, because you don't have a contract, but you can't go anywhere. The
Right.
only thing you can do is leave if they don't tender you as exclusive rights. I don't even count them as free agents. I never do. I
Right.
don't even look at them. But the only reason is because he might actually be restricted. I need to figure that out. But it's on the Eagles website. Technically, it should be true. But
Hmm.
looking over the information I have on him, I'm like, you know what? He might not be. He might not be. But nevertheless, I agree with you. If he's restricted, they should tender him because he is a low tender because he's a good special teams player.
All
But
right. Well, a lot of work to be done at safety, at
way more than I
corner,
thought.
and linebacker, as usual. As
What else?
usual. Thank God Darius Slay stayed healthy this year. You know, he was
Miracle.
banged up a couple of years ago and had to come out of some games. But can you imagine if he didn't? It would have been pretty ugly. And it was already pretty ugly against good quarterbacks, so it would have been even uglier, maybe against some of the not
That is
so good
incredible
ones.
because remember we talked about it a couple times on the show. We said, if Slay can't play, I don't know what they're going to do. Because remember we were saying that Maddox cannot play outside anymore. You just don't want to do it. It
Right,
didn't work. He's not an outside corner. Obviously an emergency you can do it, but you don't want him doing that.
right.
And the fact that they got away with it with him and Nelson on the outside and no help. No, I understand McPherson got thrown in there a couple times when both guys, other separately got hurt with minor injuries, and he came in there and a baptism by fire. You improved, but again, he's not proven anything yet. So they got a lot of work to do, and the good thing is they've got a minimum of 10 picks. We'll see what happens with compensatory picks, and we'll see if they trade any to get future picks. The GM didn't deny that he might be doing something at
That's
his
right.
press conference. He didn't deny it when asked about it,
Hmm.
and I look forward to seeing what they do. This is going to be a fun offseason because they're going to be way more active one way or the other.
No doubt about it. All right, Friday's podcast. We're going to answer some Ask ITB questions. We're going to preview the two conference championship games a little bit, give our picks for that. And there might be some Eagles news over the next 24 to 48 hours. You never know with this franchise. They happen to do that when you least expect it. So we'll have our eyes and ears out for any Eagles news that may transpire between now and the next podcast, Friday morning, 6 a.m. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. A big thanks, as always, to our producer, Hunter Brody. You can check out his work on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads. His website is broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.